America's Cannabis Conversation. Heard every Saturday at 4:20 p.m. online at americascannabisconversation.com. We're part of the W420 Radio Network, and each week we provide you with information, education, and insight into the exploding medical and recreational cannabis industry. You'll hear from industry leaders, elected officials, local experts, detractors, and more. Learn how to build your own cannabis business, how to grow the product, what's legal, and where it's legal. Tune in each week to hear updates from the National Cannabis Industry Association in Washington, tips on investing in cannabis markets, personal success stories, and more. It's now time to join America's Cannabis Conversation. Time now for another intriguing tale on the ever-fascinating cannabis trail with W420 Radio Network's lifestyle correspondent, Rich Walkoff.
All right, in San Francisco, Rich Walkoff for the W420 Radio Network with the Honorable Willie Brown, former mayor of this great city, also one of the leading Democratic figures in California politics for a generation, and former president of Harborside, which was the first and largest dispensary in California. I didn't know you were a master of cannabis, Mr. Brown, but nothing would surprise me with all your skills and talents.
Well, I'm really not a master of cannabis. Let me tell you, I came upon the opportunity to participate with Harborside. My friend Steve D'Angelo asked me to come over and take a look at Harborside. I did. I went over to take a look at Harborside. And initially, they had me doing some legal work. I became so interested in almost everything Harborside was doing, I started to become a spokesperson or in attendance at the opportunity to organize people nationally around the pot issue. That's how I ended up becoming the chair of the board and the head of Harborside, theoretically.
Yeah, now that we've seen 4 more states legalize adult use of marijuana, Montana, South Dakota, Arizona, New Jersey, in the recent election, there are now 15 states that have legal adult use of marijuana.
And 32 that have the use of marijuana for medical purposes.
Sure. So it's growing, yet it's still a Schedule I federally forbidden product that is lumped in with methamphetamine and heroin and the like. Do you sense that the new administration, incoming President-elect Joe Biden and first Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, will make concerted efforts to make that to make a change on the classification of cannabis?
Well, I think that the lead on classification of cannabis will have to come from the House. That is where you get the impetus to do it. There's so many other things that Biden and Harris need to take care of. That cannabis is not high on the list. But the minute it's presented to them, it will happen overnight for their acceptance. I'm going to guess that some of what Kamala Harris was doing as a senator will be handed off to some member of the House for the purpose of making sure that it becomes a reality. And she will be, I suspect, in those sessions with President Biden, advocating strongly for approval of if it reaches the desk.
Well, you are a good friend and perceived as a mentor to Kamala Harris for many, many years. She sponsored in the Senate the MORE Act, the Marijuana Reinvestment and Expungement Act, which would not only reclassify cannabis and take it away from the Schedule I, stigma, but also would allow doctors at Veterans Administration to prescribe pot. It would impose a federal excise tax. It would allow interstate trade. It would change the whole banking system. It would be an enormous move, but it is stalled in the Senate, and you can tell me why.
It's stalled in the Senate because you've got McConnell running the Senate. If anyone else was running the Senate who had any clear understanding and appreciation, and in particular Rand Paul and the people who are from the more progressive side of the Republican Party, if you can call anybody progressive on the Republican side, I think this time around there will be the kind of effort made to produce it, but I'm telling you, it's got to come from the House over to the Senate. And if that happens, believe me, I think the Biden administration will be enthusiastic.
Now, there was a time when Joe Biden was perceived as a man who could reach across the aisle and make bipartisan partnerships and alliances and the like. You were known for doing similar, cross the aisle efforts in California. Are those days in the bygone past?
No, they're not. I am telling you that the existence of Trump, more than anything else, has created what appears to be a point beyond which people cannot cooperate. Once Trump is removed, the national scene will be dramatically different. There will be people in the shoes of McCain, in the shoes of people similar to McCain who were there, and they will be the individuals who will be looking for solutions to issues that will not necessarily be flavored with the tribal kind of influence that has come from the Trump world.
When we look at the sales of cannabis worldwide, $12 billion in 2018, it's expected to be $31 billion by 2022. So we're seeing an exponential growth. And the other influential banking act that's being considered is the SAFE Banking Act, Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act, which would allow cannabis businesses access to financial services, which right now doesn't happen because of federal regulations. But that's got to be key because the EU allows that, Israel, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. We are way behind the world when it comes to the business considerations for cannabis distribution.
Well, fortunately, again, a Californian will have something to say about that. Maxine Waters chairs the Financial Services Committee in the House, and Maxine Waters has been there now for 28 years. She comes from South Central Los Angeles area. She understands very clearly what the issues are. And being an Angelino and being from California, being an individual who is on the African American heritage side, she will be key. And she was really smart when she was a member of the California legislature. She's the woman who orchestrated the process by which Nelson Mandela became free as a result of the divestment effort. That was Maxine Waters. She'll do the same thing on the pot side ultimately.
Yeah, the Safe Banking Act is as important, I would think, as the MORE Act.
The Safe Banking Act as an opportunity, and it's because the non-cannabis world benefits from that kind of business handling the financial transactions. My credit card that says Chase, I can't use it to get my cannabis products. I have to go to my bank and get cash and take it. Believe me, Chase, Morgan Stanley, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, every one of those operations would love nothing better than to be the persons who could do the transactions involving cannabis. Just think of what that would mean to their bottom line.
Yeah, that's interesting because, as Bob Dylan said, money don't talk, it swears. So we obviously see the incentive for financial institutions to back the Safe Banking Act, to allow cannabis industry representatives to use financial institutions the way every other business does. But getting back to the MORE Act, the fact that we're seeing so many veterans suffering from opiate problems with PTSD and suicide, I'm almost 1 an hour, 20 more a day of veterans in this country taking their own lives. It's total tragedy in so many ways. And the fact that cannabis cannot be prescribed by physicians at the VA, and that would be allowed under the MORE Act. Do you have some thoughts on that and what might be an impetus?
Absolutely. Let me assure you that if in the legislative process you are conscious of how you can manage it, you take pieces of it on a piece-by-piece basis, if necessary. Clearly, if you have the aroma of veteran needs being addressed effectively, you instantly take away the criticism that comes from people who say no pot. They have a hard time if some guy has risked his life to save our country and he needs some relief, a prescription by his physician. And his physician may be in place in a particular VA hospital. It would be clear that that individual and those individuals would be in need. Even the most strident person on the issue would have to relent.
Yeah, isn't it curious that it would possibly take veterans in need of a medicine that heretofore perceived as sort of this diabolical weed in the eyes of many in the old school view, but that's evolving and that's changing. But you've been around a number of decades to see the change in the perception of cannabis. So you just talk to me about how that is evolving and it's maybe escalating or accelerating faster than anyone would have imagined.
Well, it's all because the business of communicating in this country plays a great role in educating people and changing the views of people. And social media does that probably more effective than any others. Social media can be destructive, as the Trump operation has proven, period. But on the other hand, it can be clearly informative, clearly uplifting in some cases, and educational. And believe me, what happens with veterans, we get better reaction when the world knows what we're doing with veterans. Many years ago, we only knew about the veterans in our own neighborhood, our own friends, our own relatives. Now we know the veteran who may live in St. Louis or Mineola, where I came from, or in Denver, or in Washington. It's amazing how the communication system can equip us to be sympathetic, sensitive, and humane, no matter where.
Yeah, and speaking of the evolution, I mean, Kamala Harris, the vice president-elect, a few short years ago was prosecuting people as an attorney general in California with marijuana offenses, and now she's one of the leading advocates to expunge those criminal records. And it would really mean a lot in the minority community, in the underserved communities, and the poor people who are disproportionately arrested, convicted, and sentenced.
There are so many people whose lives have been altered, whose careers have been destroyed because of the horror laws that we had in place surrounding cannabis, nationally and state by state. Kamala Harris, as a true prosecutor, obeyed whatever was on the books. She applied her skills for the purpose of the content of that against whomever might be so exposed. In the process, she clearly gained a considerable amount of knowledge, and it gives her greater credibility inside of the administration of Joe Biden to be able to say, I was there, I did it, I put some of those people away. Some of those people should not be continuously burdened with a tag that they were somehow incarcerated because of what never should have happened. The law was the law then. We changed the law now. We also have to change the history of the law to remove those disabilities associated with people who were so convicted.
You're very passionate about it. Are you optimistic that we'll see these changes evolve?
I am certain that we will see the changes.
That's awesome. Willie Brown, great to see you in your town of San Francisco, where you were the mayor and a longtime Democratic stalwart in California politics. Rich Walkoff on the W420 Radio Network. In case you missed any of this interview or want to hear more of it, the W420radionetwork.com. You go to archive there and you'll learn more.
You're listening to America's Cannabis Conversation on W420radionetwork.com. Are you interested in learning more about cannabis? Have you thought about starting your own cannabis business but don't know how? If so, we invite you to join the Cannabis Conversation with other people like you who are looking at the exciting opportunities in this exploding business. Listen to America's Cannabis Conversation. You'll hear from industry experts and get insights into the cannabis industry. For archived shows and for more information, log on to americascannabisconversation.com. It's time for Women in Cannabis on America's Cannabis Conversation, part of the W420 Radio Network.
Didn't you get the memo?
Here's Chase Roberts.
Welcome back to the conversation. This is Chase Roberts, Women in Cannabis correspondent for the W420 Radio Network. It's a pleasure to introduce Olivia Alexander, former beauty queen, current cannabis influencer, beauty industry insider, podcaster, was named Dope Magazine's 2017 Social Media Influencer of the Year, and named by Green Entrepreneur as one of the 35 most influential women in cannabis. She's the founder and CEO of Kush Queen, a multi-million-dollar brand carrying THC-infused and CBD-only products. Olivia, welcome. Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Olivia, let's start at the very beginning. As a little girl growing up in Louisiana, did you ever imagine this would be your future?
100% no. I was a dare kid. I grew up in a small town. When I was in third grade, my best friend's brother was actually murdered buying weed in our town. And I grew up with a very stigmatized view of cannabis. And there is absolutely no way I could have ever imagined this would be my life.
Sounds about right. So interesting how people end up in the industry. I also wanted to bring up and mention that you originally started this foray into this industry in 2005 with being a bud tender at a dispensary. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm incredibly proud to have started as a bud tender back in the medical days, gray area medical. And it's really where I fell in love with the plant. I tried cannabis for the first time when I was 18, about my second week in college. I was pretty shocked, mind blown, if you will, because I didn't burn down anything. Nothing bad happened. I just slept through the night, and I had been struggling with my mental health and insomnia and sleeping for most of my teenage years. And very quickly, I felt completely in love with the plant. And then I was able to become a bud tender through some friends who were opening up a shop. And it really was just that moment for me where I knew cannabis was it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And you come from a wellness perspective. How is that also the impetus for starting your company?
Well, I worked in the industry for so many years. I worked in a dispensary that was operated by women, but run by men. I worked for so many cannabis companies throughout the years, again, that were operated by women and run by men. And also everything around me, from the cannabis cups to the type of marketing my clients even wanted to do, and the kind of content people wanted me to post on my Instagram feeds at that time when I was an influencer, was really all the 18 to 35-year-old male stoner. And that's great and all, but that wasn't how I was using cannabis. Sure, I love to get high, but for me, using cannabis every single day, morning, noon, and night, was about my endocannabinoid system. It was about my wellness. It was about sleeping, eating, feeling better, and living my best life. And I didn't relate to it. And so when I finally got the opportunity to really pursue Kush Queen, for me, I wanted to create a brand that spoke to everyone else, that was for people who didn't feel like they were a part of the culture, and that made cannabis products as approachable as possible.
So you actively in your company are trying to break stereotypes in the industry, and who feels, as an audience, that they could benefit from it, break all those stigmas. One of the really important things I wanted to ask you is, because you are such a female advocate in this industry, how much have you seen it change for the better for women and the time you've been in it? And what are some of the major obstacles do you think we still need to overcome moving forward?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I mean, back in the day when I was just a bud tender and when I worked for brands, women were bud tenders, they were booth girls, they were promo girls. And I mean, I remember having my Kush Queen booth out at the Cannabis Cup in the literal shadow of I like Brass Knuckles or one of those brands. And they had like literal strip club built into their booth. It was just a certain type of experience in a certain place for women. And for me personally, being out at the Cannabis Cup, I was very young. I saw Corey Thomas from Honey Pot Bear on the stage winning a Cannabis Cup. And that was a really big moment for me in seeing a woman who owned the company, who was a product maker. And it really was like that moment where I saw who I could be. And the industry has just obviously changed night and day. And there are more women now than ever, from hosts like yourself to influencers to owners. I think the biggest thing that I want to see women overcome is really getting those licenses really, really more on the plant touching side. I think that it's still very male dominated. We still only have one woman running a publicly traded cannabis company. And the numbers have actually declined in the past few years when it comes to women in cannabis. So it's really important to me that people know that you can have whatever place in this industry that you want. You just have to believe in yourself and find your entryway and pull your chair up and demand space. That's what I did. And even for the longest time, I was the only woman in the room, much younger than everyone else. And at a certain point, that was really my magic. And I stood in that, and I tried to be as fearless as possible, but we have a long way to go. And I always tell people, this is a female plant that gives us this flower, that gives us this fruit, that gives us these molecules. And it is so important that women are not just a part of the industry, but leading and running the industry, I think, because that's a female plant.
So amazing. Your thoughts on this. And speaking of which, where are your plants sourced from?
Well, when it comes to our cannabis, obviously everything is sourced through the compliant market in California, mostly NorCal, outdoor grown. And then all of our hemp is sourced from Oregon. It's really important to me when it comes to making finished products that the cannabis, especially the extracts, be in its highest form. And I'm really a proponent of outdoor, mainly because it's sustainable. And at the end of the day, it's really the extract, and cannabis being our active ingredient, if you will. Everything is about that starting product and where it comes from. So we really pride ourselves on sourcing, from the West Coast.
And you're science-backed. And I understand you have no GMOs in your products.
No GMOs, no HMOs, nothing bad. The reality is that I was diagnosed bipolar in my early 20s, and I use my products to treat my bipolar disorder without, traditional pharmaceuticals. And so I really believe in a philosophy that you're using cannabinoids all day, every day, from maybe a pain lotion, maybe I'll pop a gummy in the afternoon, maybe I'll have a joint at night, maybe I'll take a CBN gummy to sleep or have a tincture. I'm always using my products. And with that being said, they have to be safe. They have to be clean. This is my medicine. This is what gets me through every day. And so it's really important to me, not just that the cannabis be clean and safe and lab tested and accurately dosed, but that the other ingredients are too. And I think that's a really important thing when it comes to my products at Kush Queen. Everything being as gentle as possible, everything being as organic and natural as possible. And then, of course, down to the packaging, trying to source as much of our packaging in the US. There is such a beautiful thing about cannabis being this American export, this thing that's so uniquely California and American. And I really pride myself on being a small business owner, being a millennial, and really trying to be transparent and just make the company as good as possible, down to the culture here too. It's not just about great products. It's about how we treat people. It's about everything that we do every day, because we are building an industry,
a lifestyle, a way of life, of wellness, green and green.
Yes. As good. That's the thing about cannabis. Like, she makes me my best, greatest self. And that is what I just try to give back to her every single day, because without this plant and without these molecules, I have no idea if I would even be alive, honestly. And to have it all topped off with the fact that I get to live my passion every day, I really just try to be as committed as possible to that same, thing that she gave me day in, day out, even though, again, it's easier said than done.
Why don't we get into some of your product lines and what you are offering people through your company?
Yeah, so Kush Queen started with the bath bomb. We really were the THC bath bomb in all the dispensaries. We pride ourselves on creating this beautiful handmade product that's a full body topical experience. So unlike just placing a little cannabis oil where it hurts, your skin is your biggest organ. You're absorbing the cannabinoids, you're absorbing the essential oils, having this entourage effect. And we find that people have incredible results with sleep, with mood, and really see a huge increase in wellness, because there's so many benefits to bathing, not just bathing in cannabis. Then we have, yes,
the whole combination's perfection.
It all works better together. You get in the tub, you soak, you get out, you feel like you got a full body massage, but you didn't pay $85 and have to go to a spa. You get to roll right into your bed and have the best night's sleep. After the success of the bath bombs, we came up with a patent pending nanotechnology that allows the cannabis to go from oil to water. So we have some advanced formulations in some of our pain lotion, our lube. We have psychoactive cosmetics in the dispensaries that actually get you high through your skin. We have a primer, we have a setting spray. I really love making products that no one would ever expect to see in a dispensary. That is what I do, because everybody buys weed, everybody buys a joint, everybody buys a vape. Those products sell themselves. But when you are making these more sophisticated finished products that sit in the wellness and beauty space, I really believe you can bring new people to cannabis. And that is what I care about the most, is bringing new people through products that are unexpected, that are approachable. Because the truth of the matter is, not everyone is going to smoke a joint, even if weed is legal. So I just love making the products, and I love having a line that I think is a great expression of the plant and all of these crazy ways that no one thinks about it.
You're definitely an innovator, and you've gotten some accolades. Haven't you won a few awards specifically for your bath bomb, and for what have you won?
Yeah. We've won multiple cannabis cups throughout the year for the bath bomb, for the pain lotion. I was Dope Magazine Social Media Influencer of the Year back in 2017. We won Best Primer from Refinery 29, Beauty Innovator Award. We've been nominated for other awards from beauty publications with that. I'm nominated this year for Entrepreneur of the Year. The awards are a really great honor, and it feels great to be seen. And I feel like it's really just the start of hopefully, a long legacy. Because I always tell people, there's a lot of people here for just the short term, just to get in, get out. But I'm really not here for a good time. I'm here for a long time. And for me, when people hear Kush Queen, I hope that one day they think of my legacy, because it really is that serious to me. And it's so much more than just awards and followers. It's about making products that change people's lives and living authentically and being a good leader in a space that I don't think has many, and just saying, like, this is me, and I'm a softie, but I'm a bad bitch at the same time. And I love cannabis, and I live from that, and it's rare, but it's real. And I just think that it's important too, because not everybody is going to be, a CEO of like these CEOs like you see. Not everyone's going to wear a suit, not everyone's going to be about the numbers. I'm about the numbers too. I'm a businesswoman, but I'm about so much more than that. And that's the same thing for Kush Queen in the products and in everything we do.
How do you find that being a beauty industry insider for 15 years of your life and working with some of the biggest names, how do you feel that has helped you build this brand in the products you offer and how you approach it? Because that industry hasn't quite done the crossover into the cannabis industry. It keeps trying. I keep seeing companies trying to do it, but you're one of the few successful ones that have done it. So how do you feel that's played into your innovation when it comes to your beauty products?
Well, believe it or not, the beauty industry trying to make crappy cannabis beauty products and trying to make hemp seed oil, calling it CBD, they are my inspiration. I've been a beauty consumer since I was a little kid. I got my first facial when I was like 11, like what? And I live and breathe beauty and wellness products outside of being the owner of Kush Queen. So for me, these products, I know these products and I know this experience. And more than that, I know what drives a woman to the beauty industry, which is to feel better and look better. And the reality is a lot of these products don't make us look better, and they most certainly make us feel nothing. And that is the power of cannabis and beauty. It's actually beauty that changes your consciousness. It's beauty that makes you feel better from the inside out. And then it's this system, this powerful endocannabinoid system that is actually making our bodies more imbalanced, thus making us more beautiful. Not to mention the power of CBD as an anti-inflammatory, and inflammation being the root of so much bad shit when it comes to beauty. So I really just live and breathe this. And I think that the truth, if I'm being real honest with you, is when people started to call Kush Queen a beauty brand in mainstream publications, I wasn't expecting that. I was building a cannabis company. I always thought we were a cannabis company. And then because it was a personal care product and because of the type of products they were, we got to ride this wave of CBD beauty, of cannabis beauty. And I'm honored, and I've loved being a part of it. It's been a joy for me. It's just been a great surprise because, again, I've just been living my life. I had no idea that Sephora would be like, let's sell weed leaf things, like who would have thought that? I didn't think that.
You've been called the Mariah Carey of weed by Elle magazine. Did you ever see that one coming either?
No. And I like to say that it's like the greatest compliment and also the biggest insult, because like Mariah Carey is known as a diva. And I'm just like, oh Lord, but that was a really big moment for me in my career. And I grew up, reading Elle. I found a picture of myself the other day. I'm moving. And so I found this picture of me and I'm laying on my bed and I'm probably like 12 and I have all these magazines on my bed and to see my brand in those magazines and to really get to be a part of that is something that I didn't really ever see for myself. And really in the early days of my career, I spent a lot of time going to New York and trying to talk to these editors about cannabis. And I was thrown out of a lot of them, like literally thrown out. Like Harper's Bazaar, this editor was like, I thought they were going to get security for me, at one point. So for me, it's also to see the pendulum swing, to see the progress, to see the change. The fact that they want me to even be in there is really, truly an honor. And then Elle magazine is like, it. And then forever I'll tell my kids one day, I was the Mariah Carey of weed. And they will say, oh, Mom, no.
It's great. And then with that, what are your plans moving forward? Do you have anything in development you want to talk about, or what's next for your brand?
Yeah, we've been developing our 20 shades of color cosmetics for the past few years. We paused them because of COVID. Obviously, you cannot match people's skin tone with COVID. So essentially, they're 20 shades of fully THC infused foundation with nanoparticles. So you cover your face and your neck and you actually get high for a good 2 to 3 hours, like you hit a vape. And for me, I really see this place in our dispensaries, in our regulated market in California, that I think even the dispensaries aren't seeing, which is the fact that Sephora is selling fake CBD stuff with pot leaves, and they're doing it for a reason. It's because they're trying to bring in that customer, and we should be bringing those customers into compliant, regulated dispensaries where we can give them real products that are lab tested and safe and accurately dosed. And so I really have this grand vision to build a beauty counter in a lot of the best dispensaries in California and really start showing the industry how we can sell products that people don't necessarily come in for, and transform this world of cannabis for women, because especially like going on dates, having social anxiety before you go to a business meeting. I mean, these poor moms stuck at home right now with their kids during COVID who maybe can't smoke or don't want to smoke around their kids. This would be the perfect product. So we're working on that. We're also, planning some multi-state expansion. To this day, our cannabis products are still only in California. And that was a very intentional decision because of how many of these licensing deals go south. And when I license the brand to someone else in Canada or wherever, I lose my control. So I'm really excited to be finding partnerships and growing the business state to state, because it really is important to me that we always sell THC products, that we aren't just a hemp company. Someone called me the other day, the owner of Kush Queen CBD boutique. And I was pissed, honestly, because I am not the owner of a CBD company. I am the owner of a cannabis company. So I feel like the future's bright. I'm really excited, hopefully, for some progress in the next few years with federal legalization. And I was here before it was legal. I was here the day Prop 64 passed. I was here the day everything switched over. I was here when the regs came into effect. And I want to be here on that day when America finally comes correct and legalizes this plan and opens up access for everybody.
Olivia, such a pleasure to speak with you. And we were glad you were here on W420 Radio Network. Thank you so much for your time. If you missed any of this great interview with Olivia Alexander, you can go to W420radionetwork.com and click on the archive section to listen to this and other great interviews. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to America's Cannabis Conversation on W420radionetwork.com.
We're at Emerald Cup Rich Walkoff for the 420 Radio Network with 15-year NBA veteran and world champion Matt Barnes. Matt, great career. You got a new thing going on, and you're entering the cannabis world.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I started when I was 14, and I used through my high school career, my college career, my NBA career. And, post-career, it was something that interests me. And, I've kind of jumped in feet first. I have a company called 7 Leaves in Sacramento. By January, we'll have 1,000 lights, so we'll be one of the bigger indoor grows. And then I'm actually launching also my own individual line called Swish in about a month, which will be a whole SKU of CBD products and then THC products as well.
So you're defying a lot of the preconceived notions about if you get high, you're a stoner, you don't have your together.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are many professional athletes and elite athletes. So tell me how the paradigm has changed.
I've kind of always marched, to my own beat anyway. I think people who follow sports knew that, but I knew it was something that helped me throughout my life and definitely in the NBA. And, obviously hats off to the Major League Baseball. They just taken it off the banned substance list. So I hope, the NFL and the NBA are soon behind that. But I think they're just kind of waking up. They're realizing that, a ton of guys continue to get in trouble, be fined, or even lose their careers over it. There must be something to it. Why are all these elite athletes doing it? So, hats off to the leagues that really kind of started to dive into it and really learn about the plant and not live by the old stigmas about the plant.
Now tell me how you played under the influence, if you will. Was it transcendent? Was it performance enhancing? Did it illuminate things that were not there otherwise?
No, it allowed me to focus. It wasn't something that I would do right before I went on the court, but throughout the process of the day, if I had a game, I would go to shoot around in the morning, come home, smoke a joint, take a nap, get up, shower, eat, and go to the game. So within a 6-hour window, I had smoked, but not necessarily right before the game. But like I said, it was something that allowed me to take a great nap. It allowed me to focus and concentrate. Obviously, it's an anti-inflammatory as well, so it always just kind of had me ready for the game.
Yeah, and you're not alone, because there are many guys, maybe the majority of guys in the NBA and other sports are partaking, yes, either recreationally or therapeutically or both.
Yes, no, I would completely agree. I would only like to kind of speak on myself, but I think it's no secret that there are other guys using it. And like I said, unfortunately, right now they're being fined and suspended and losing their careers over, which is unfortunate. So I hope that we're in the process of change right now.
Yeah, well, you mentioned back in 2007, the We Believe Warriors that stunned the world and took down the number 1 seed Mavericks. First time an 8 seed had ever done that in NBA playoff history. And in the celebratory mode, you shared a story here at the Emerald Cup. Or maybe you could paraphrase.
Yeah. We had won Game 6 against the Mavericks, and went back to a teammate's house to kind of celebrate a little bit. Our head coach Don Nelson lived on the top floor of the building, and we went up there, and he told us that Woody Harrelson was rolling doobies in the back and go partake. And we kind of looked at each other like, what the hell? And we went to the back and kind of partook. So Nelly's kind of always been ahead of the curve in life in general, not just sports. So that was just another example of it being that.
Yeah, and I understand that Snoop Dogg got in the mix in that one too.
Yeah, Snoop was in town for the game. We ended up, after we left Nelly's, we went to the club to hang out a little bit, and then I hit Snoop up. He told us to come by, and we went back to his hotel, and smoke some more, so it was one of those crazy nights. It only fit, after we made NBA history, we had a hell of a night after.
Yeah, no, and the league doesn't view it the same way. It's frowned upon, maybe not as severely as other leagues do, but you've had some run-ins with the NBA about that, and it almost cost you your career.
Yeah, it was something that in the NBA they go by a 3-strike policy. I had like 2.75 strikes in my time playing. So it's just something that it happened. The 2 tests I failed, it happens. But luckily I was able to, not get that 3rd strike, which is, 5 games, and the world knows, and it's a large fine. So, I teetered the line of it. But like I said, even though I knew I wasn't supposed to do it, to me there was no alternative, because I'm not someone that's a big drinker or someone who takes opioids.
Yeah, and opiates are the de facto path for most guys. You get hurt, they pop pills. I mean, I was around the NFL for over 25 years, and the stories I heard were unbelievable. And it's probably no different in the NBA. It's a grind, and your body breaks down, and they give you pills to mask the pain and the symptoms, but it doesn't get to the cause, and it doesn't alleviate the problem.
No, not at all. I think you hit it on the head. It's a simple masking agent that is masking one thing and causing another long-term effect, whether it be breaking down, important organs or getting you addicted to it. But like I said, it's the big companies, these billion-dollar opioid pharmaceutical companies that, have a stranglehold on this. But like I said, I think we continue to, make progress in that direction. And, I hope that soon it'll change.
Tell me about the mindset playing high, how it might compare to otherwise.
It's really just a focus. It's a mental focus. It allows me to lock in. It allowed me to, understand what the task at hand was, no matter what was going on. I had kind of a hectic life off the court as well. So I'm able to block out all the bullshit and for those 2.5 hours, focus on my job and try my best to do it as best as I could.
Well, Matt, you had a great run, and congrats on that, and look forward to hearing more about Swish. What's the focus of Swish?
So Swish will be, my whole approach in this space is education. My whole goal is to help change regulations in professional sports. So Swish will be a full line of CBD products, along with THC products. But like I said, continuing to educate, continuing to explain the benefits and the educational side of why we use it instead, and really removing the stigma of high. We want to remove that stigma and explain this is why we do it, this is when we do it, and this is what it helps with. And I think the more and more people that are able to do that, it's going to continue to help raise awareness.
All right. Well, the Emerald Cup is happy to have you here, Matt Barnes, NBA champ. Rich Walcott for the 420 Radio Network.
You're listening to America's Cannabis Conversation on W420RadioNetwork.com. Are you interested in learning more about cannabis? Have you thought about starting your own cannabis business but don't know how? If so, we invite you to join the Cannabis Conversation with other people like you who are looking at the exciting opportunities in this exploding business. Listen to America's Cannabis Conversation. You'll hear from industry experts and get insights into the cannabis industry. For archived shows and for more information, log on to americascannabisconversation.com.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the conversation. We have a very, very interesting gentleman who's going to talk to us about innovation, a person who's been an innovator all of his life, David Klein. David, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
David is a gentleman who has had a very fascinating life. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's done a lot of things. His most famous at the moment is Jelly Belly, the multiple flavored jelly beans that you never knew what you were going to get for sure when you bit into them. I'm curious, as I watched the documentary on you on YouTube yesterday, you seem to have a unique ability to try and discern what consumers want. Where do you think that came from, David?
I've always been curious. And I've always loved the candy industry, even from a youngster. I worked in a liquor store that my grandparents owned, and my job was to stock the candy section. I was 6 years old at the time. And I had a fascination about the different candy companies, where they were located, what they made, who acquired who, how companies changed hands. And I knew from that young age that I would be in the candy business. And I was positive. When people said, what do you want to do? Even though I went to law school, I knew I wanted to be in the candy business.
That's such a dichotomy of challenges, law school and
Yes.
candy business. I mean,
Yes.
it just amazes me.
They're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
6 years old, you started in the candy business.
Yeah, I was
And
at
yet-
a liquor store that was
Right.
next door to a gas station that was owned by Annette Funicello's dad. It
Wow.
was in Van Nuys, California.
And you ultimately went to law school, you said, and when did you come up with the concept for Jelly Bellies?
1976.
And were you out of school or still in school when that happened?
No, I was out of law school, and I was working as a nut and candy distributor in a business that I started from scratch. One of our customers was Famous Amos. I used to supply him with his pecans.
Famous
And
Amos cookies.
Yeah,
Oh.
Famous Amos cookies. He was at the corner of Sunset and Formosa in Hollywood.
Wow.
Wally Amos.
Right. And so that's about when you came up with Jelly Bellies?
Correct.
Was that your first invention?
Yes, it actually was.
Your first invention is a blockbuster
Jelly.
product.
Yes, Jelly Bellies. That my first
So
invention.
how did you come
correct.
up with the name Jelly Bellies?
I used to watch Red Fox. He had a show called Sanford and Son.
Sure.
And one night they were talking about a musician by the name of Lead Belly.
Sure.
And I didn't know it at the time, but he went to jail for attempted murder.
Ooh.
So actually, Jelly Belly is named after a man who was not the best person in the world. But I remember that belly part. I just put it with Jelly Belly.
Now you literally reinvented the jelly bean class, and you changed the shape, you changed the flavor, the texture, even to the polish on the outside of the beans. Did this come to you in stages, or did it happen all at once?
It happened all at once, actually.
Wow.
I knew that I wanted a small bean so that they would be low in calorie. They were 4
Okay.
calories each. And I knew that I wanted one that would be flavored on the outside as well as the inside. Prior to that, most every jelly bean on the market was white on the inside. And if you bit into it and you saw that it was white, that meant every flavor, every inside was the same.
Mm.
It was only flavored a little bit on the shell, if at all. The only flavors that you could really discern were the black ones, the licorice ones, and maybe a few of the other ones. They all tasted alike. I did not want that to happen to my bean.
We're going to roll forward to when you decided you were going to create a new product, and that was your CBD-infused product. What made you decide to think about doing a new product infused with CBD oil?
Great question. For 43 and a half years since I left Jelly Belly, I wanted to get back into the jelly bean business. I had a 20-year non-compete clause from 1980 to 2000, so that took care of 20 years
Sure.
where I could not enter the business. I made other attempts prior to our CBD arrival, and for one reason or another, none of those they were never able to really get off the ground. And we were in Colorado Springs, actually. My wife fell We were at a hotel, and she fell coming out of it, out of the patio, and we had to rush her to the hospital, and she was in a tremendous amount of pain. Nothing that they gave her could really help, and we were driving by one of the stores in Colorado, and I said, I'm going in there. Let me just see if I can find something. And I brought something out to the car, and it helped her immediately within at least 10, 15 minutes. And I said to myself, we need to look into this when we get back to Florida. And that's how it really got started. That was the motivation to get started, and we decided to. We knew nothing about the field. I'll tell you something, there are so many wonderful people out there that were willing to guide us and to help us. We knew how to make candy, but we didn't know anything about isolate or milligrams or anything. We were like, we didn't know. We did not know, but we learned very fast. It took us about a year and a half to develop the formula. We finally developed it with 10 milligrams per jelly bean. We love the industry. We love the field. We love the industry. We love the people that have helped us. We love our customers. I've never been happier, and I always think that if that hadn't happened to me with Jelly Belly, I would not be in this industry.
I use the gummy bears. I live in Southwest Florida, and David lives in Central Florida, but I get my gummy bears from Amazon, and during the summertime they come in a plastic bottle, and if they sit outside because I'm not here to open the door for the UPS guy, they sit out and they wind up being in one big blob. And David told me that's part of the problem of the formulation, and in his jelly beans you don't have that problem. So you've reinvented yourself as a new entrepreneur in probably the fastest growing business in the United States for sure, if not in the world, with a consumer product that has its origins with Jelly Bellies.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And you can ship them anywhere in the world and not worry about it melting. We have 38 flavors. I've never seen any other type of edible with 38 flavors. You usually get 4, 5, or 6, and our flavors are distinct, and there's no gelatin in our formula. Most gummy bears contain gelatin, and we have no gelatin in there. We have 38 flavors, and they don't melt. So those are 3 really good features in my mind.
So, David, we just have a few seconds left. Please tell people how they can reach you and get more information about your fabulous new product.
You can reach us at our webpage, Spectrum Confections, with an S at the end, spectrumconfections.com.
We have been speaking with David Klein, who has invented a new CBD jelly bean that is getting tremendous play. David, thank you for joining the conversation today, and we'll have you back on real soon.
It's indeed been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for taking part in America's Cannabis Conversation. To hear this show in its entirety or to hear any of our archive shows, log on to americascannabisconversation.com and tune in for the next installment of America's Cannabis Conversation. W420RadioNetwork.com